Just really quickly, I'll introduce them from my right all the way to the end of the table. Kuhio Vogeler, Lorenz Gonchur, Eiko Kosasa, Ron Williams, and Sydney Ialkea. I'm not going to give you their bios because they're in the program, if you have a program. But also for people who are watching, they'll be on the television screen when it gets aired on Olelo. So this particular panel is looking at recovering our political past while probing towards the future. I think it's a really appropriate title. What I see happening is, and certainly in my own research, is that there's so much information coming out now about our history that no one ever knew before. So, and this is going to be reflected in all kinds of scholarship and as well in film and video. So when I look around and I see like every other person has a camera, I know that I'm correct. Okay, having said all of that, this is the format for today. Our panelists will be presenting information about the documents that they have researched for like 10 minutes each, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A from the audience for a little bit, and then they'll come back and they'll talk about how all of these documents actually relate to future work and the direction of our nation, our kingdom. And then one last thing which I forgot to say is Kalei Maili Ali'i Hawaiian Civic Club is also a sponsor or a co-sponsor of this panel. And the reason I say that is because Hawaiian Civic Clubs have been portrayed as, you know, the aunties with the big hats playing Hawaiian music for the longest time. But the reality is Hawaiian Civic Clubs have come a long way for kind of the similar kinds of reasons that the whole movement is moving forward. Documentation, history, understanding history, and rethinking where you are because of it. The Kalei Maili o Hawaiian Civic Club, Kalei Maili Ali'i Hawaiian Civic Club, which was actually named for Queen Liliuokalani, is a club that focuses on her legacy and what she left us in terms of directions, what to do next, and kind of that's where we're going with this panel. Having said that, our first speaker today is Kuhio Vogeler. Welcome, Kuhio.
Aloha. And with the noise, can everyone hear in the back there? Yeah, so I'm going to try and talk loud enough so that everybody could hear. The way that I became involved in this is a few months ago, Arnie came up to me and he first envisioned this idea of people representing different viewpoints and putting together a proposed legislature or something like that. And it's come down to this idea of looking at documents, historical documents, that can help to guide us for the future. So I've chosen 3 documents here, and the first document is from the 1839 Declaration of Rights, which was incorporated into the 1840 Constitution. And it's just a brief paragraph, but I chose it for a specific reason. And I just wanted to read what it says here. It says, "The origin of the present government and system of polity is as follows. Kamehameha I was the founder of the kingdom, and to him belonged all of the land from one end of the islands to the other, though it was not his own private property. It belonged to the people and the chiefs in common, of whom Kamehameha I was the head, and had the management of that landed property." Now I read this because it presents 3 classes of rights: the king, the chiefs, and the native tenants. And what happens is with the Land Commission that's founded in 1845, they reaffirmed these rights, and they phrase it a little bit differently. They say the king, the landlords, and the native tenants. And then what happens is with the mahele, that process that takes place, you have 2 of these classes that trade these rights, that commute these rights. And these rights are rights to dominium, the ultimate land title of the country. And there's also the idea of imperium, the idea of authority to govern. But you have 2 classes that trade these rights, the king and the chiefs, and these rights become governmental rights. And you have some people from the 3rd class, the native tenants or the Aboriginal Hawaiians, who also trade those rights for private land ownership. Now what my research shows is that 1893 you have the government which is taken over. And then 1917, the Queen dies. So these two classes of rights that become governmental rights, after the Queen dies, there is no government. So this last class, these native tenants, these Aboriginal Hawaiians, they're the last class with that remaining dominium. And what does that mean for us today? And how does that affect our future? What that means is that that relationship to that ultimate land title is a relationship that we as Native Hawaiians have. And that is what affirms our sovereignty today. But as we go forward, as we move forward, we can't just be looking at Native Hawaiians per se, because you also had non-Native Hawaiian Kingdom subjects. And those non-Native Hawaiian Kingdom subjects need to be included in this process by the doctrine of jus sanguinis in terms of international law. The non-Native Hawaiian Kingdom subjects, which were about 15% according to the 1890 Constitution. But those people would also be included as we move forward. So I chose that because that particular paragraph, because it explains these three classes of rights, and it explains how these three classes of rights, or it shows how these three classes of rights are perpetuated in the sense that that last class, that class, the native tenants or the Aboriginal Hawaiians, that relationship to the land is what continues our sovereignty today. So that was the first document. The second document that I wanted to touch on real quickly comes from 1895. And it's a document that on March 2nd, 1895, Senator Pettigrew read into the congressional record. And it shows what took place just before the 1895 Wilson uprising or Wilson counter-rebellion, or however you refer to that. There's many ways that people have referred to that. But what happened is that on January 5th, 1895, there was an American captain that was tortured. And so that American captain was William Davies. And this is just what it says. The success of the Hawaiian government, that would be the Republic of Hawaii, in conducting its treason cases was due to the incriminating evidence given by Captain William Davies of the steamer Taimanalo. Davies was arrested on the morning of January 5th. He's an American citizen and refused any information, and while protesting his innocence, demanded an interview with the United States minister. He was refused. Davies was then given to understand that if he was not forthcoming, he would be strung up by his thumbs. But he did not flinch, and his legs were bound at the knees, and his thumbs were lashed to a whipcord, and that to iron bolts in the stone wall of the prison yard, so that the unfortunate man's toes just touched the ground. The tendons of the victim's limbs stood out like strands of rope. Blood vessels knotted on his arms and legs, swelling as if they were ready to burst with congested blood, restrained in its course by this abnormal position until at last he fainted. Dr. Cooper used salts of ammonia to revive the captain. As soon as he was revived, two Negro convicts suspended him again by his thumbs. This inhuman operation was begun at noon, and it was 6 o'clock in the evening before Davies, more dead than alive, made the statement that respited him from this inhuman barbarity of his persecutors. That's an example of one of the tortures that took place. And so that shows that the Republic of Hawaii was not only actually against the people here, but they were against American citizens that also supported the Queen. This last thing that I'll read very quickly comes from March 11th, 1990. It's from Vytautas Landsbergis, the previous president of Lithuania. And he explains a process that took place there in one evening that changed the government. Now, the elections had taken place and the legislature met, and this is what happened at precisely 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock in the evening, on the 11th of March, Parliament formally abandoned the term Lithuanian Supreme Soviet Republic and declared itself the Supreme Council of Lithuania. Only a few minutes afterward, we passed the Act for the name and emblems of the state, which declared our assembly to be the Supreme Council of the Republic of Lithuania. What they did is they changed from the Lithuanian Supreme Soviet to the Republic of Lithuania, and they did this in a very short period of time. Our parliament was now ready to decide on our independence, and he goes on, but what happens is that this change that takes place in about an hour, and that process of change could take place in about an hour here if things are planned correctly. So I yield at this point to Lawrence Gonshore, and he's going to be doing a PowerPoint, so I'm going to pop down there and change the PowerPoint slide. Thank you.